This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, welcome everyone to today's webinar. My name is Allison James. I'm one of your account managers here at One Each Technologies. I know Emily is out there. I don't know if she's muted or not. Miss
I am
Emily,
not.
well, there she is. Emily and I are your account managers. Possibly said the wrong word. We're your account managers here with One Each Technologies. So hopefully we've spoken to most of you, one or the other of us, or both. And we collectively, right, Miss Emily, are super excited to have Richard here.
Hi.
So, yeah, Richard. Richard is going to be doing this presentation for you today. Kind of newer to the One Each family. We welcome him aboard. And his specialty, which he will be talking about, is SEO, search engine optimization. And I have a little intro that I get to read on Mr. Richard, and then he's going to tell you about himself and more about some information that you guys have all joined to hear about. So let's go ahead and get started. Richard, how do you say your last name?
Nosek.
That would have been my guess. Richard Nosek.
It's a Czech name.
It is Czech. Oh, there you go. And you live in Canada, correct?
I do, West Coast.
There you go. I'll read your bio. Richard started his career in the internet industry in the fall of 1999 as a Flash animation designer. He adjusted his focus when it became clear that clients needed help shifting their content to the oh wow, you're giving me big words, to the digital medium of the internet, like the growing digital internet medium. I can't even say that word.
Burgeoning. Yeah.
Burgeoning. Thank you. Richard quickly began to develop expertise in content strategy, user experience, conversion optimization, and SEO. Over the past 2 decades, he has served at 3 digital agencies supporting clients in the development and evolution of their digital experiences. Richard is involved daily in working with client teams to provide them with digital strategy, consulting, and support them to help them make the most of their internet presence. With that, I'm handing this all over to Richard. Just before you do start talking, everyone who is out there, I have you muted. We can unmute you for questions, but more so, why don't you just use the chat box for questions for now, and I'll jump in and help bring your questions to Richard as we go through this. It is being recorded. We'll have the recording afterwards. So, Richard, go ahead, take this over.
Thank you very much for that excellent introduction. The word is burgeoning. Yes. And I'm glad that tripped you up. That wasn't my intention, but it's kind of funny. As Allison said, I'm very much open to this being organic and dynamic. So if you have a question that comes to mind, please put it into the chat and then we'll try and get to it. We're also going to maybe have some time at the end, theoretically, for some questions and answers. So I will get to the sort of first slide, outline the agenda. In terms of an introduction, I think Allison did a really good job. One of the things that I've been doing a lot in my career has been helping clients maximize their digital experience or their website. I've been in this industry for such a long time that when I first started, we did call them websites, and now we call them digital experiences. So things change, and one of the things that has changed a great deal from the time I first started in this industry has been around search engine optimization and around organic search. So today what I wanted to do was really just talk a bit about organic search and SEO, what it is and how it is important to organizations, especially to not-for-profit organizations or organizations that are working in the community. I also wanted to talk about some of the things that you can be doing and where you could start with your own digital experiences or your own website, some of the best practices that you want to take a look at, and then just wrap that up and conclude that with some recommendations for next steps, and then we'll go into questions and answers. So I was trying to put this presentation together. I found that image, and that's very much how the internet feels. When I think back, that's how the internet feels in my memory, like it was 20 years ago, very much beep, bop, boop kind of, and now things have changed so much. It's been quite an interesting experience over the last 2 decades to see how this medium has come to the place it is. So organic search and SEO, that's really what this topic is about. Organic search is a channel, that's an acquisition channel. Think of it as in that sort of marketing terms of it's one of the ways that you acquire visitors, you acquire users to your website. There's also other mediums, you're probably familiar with it. I'm quite sure that many of you have had experience with something like Google Ads or the Google Grant program, that's paid. There's also email and social, and so there are these channels that direct traffic towards your website, and organic search is the one we're going to talk about today. Organic search comes also with SEO. SEO stands for, in case you were wondering about that acronym, Search Engine Optimization. And search engine optimization, or SEO, is really a strategy and some tactics that can help website owners and website administrators increase their visibility in organic search and increase the amount of traffic that is coming to their website, or the number of users that are visiting their website through that specific channel. There really are three primary or three key entities involved in this. There is, of course, the website, the digital experience. That is your home base on the internet. There are the users, the people that are out there actively searching for your services, for your products. They're looking for the things that you offer, the things that you would theoretically be housing and espousing on your website. And then there are the search engines. And the search engines are the machines that crawl, then they index your website, and then based on what they see and understand of your website, they will put that into their index. And then the search engine is really that one part of the triad that connects the other two together. The user will use the search engine, type in some kind of a query, a search term. They will look for something like, she will start with a look for an activity for her child for the summer camp maybe. And then the search engine will look in its index and try and return some results. And I think everybody understands that because I think we all use Google. In fact, I'm pretty sure that something like 98% of us use it regularly. It's interesting when I start working with clients to talk about and help them develop organic search and help them to grow their SEO. Where they start when they're looking at this triad is usually from their perspective, which is their website. And that's rightly so. You have to think about that is your home base. That is the place where you've planted your flag on the landscape of the internet. And that's the place where you will conduct business and the place that you will help. And really your website is there as as part of a larger, organizational objective. So it isn't everything, but when it comes to the internet, your website is that home base. The thing that I've developed over the years, having worked with clients every single day, basically, of my career, I'm working with clients on their websites, is there's a couple of other components to this triad that are really important to understand. One is the search engine, and I talk quite a bit about that. The search engines evolve, so there's a technical aspect, and there's that sort of, this is the part of the SEO, I think, over the years that I think people kind of think of as the black magic part, because it's really kind of hard to determine. We hear about Google's algorithm. It has over 200 ranking signals or factors that go into it. It's updated regularly. And somebody can do something to help your website get up. It's sort of the mystery part. But we have a much better understanding now about how search engines work and what they are looking for to determine where you would fit in their index. So it's certainly something that we want to be paying close attention to. And that's the one part of my career that I've been really very keen about and very into, if you will, over the years, is just watching and seeing how things have changed and how things have evolved. There are elements in the SEO world, tactics, if you will, that once were very, very effective at helping to get you onto the first page or move you up within those search engine results, that today do not work whatsoever. And that's sort of that part of that evolution. So that's something that I've always been very keen about. And so staying sort of on top of what's happening. And that's, probably why you would go to an SEO, if you will, is because they would have that, that understanding and that knowledge. The other part of this triad that has become even more of a focus for me in the last decade, the last 7 years maybe, are the users, because actually without the users, we have nothing. You can have a great website, and if users can't find it, so they can't find it when they type in a search term, then we're missing the mark. Your website is just sitting there without any kind of traffic or any kind of engagement. It's not being as an effective tool for your organization. Also, though, if users can find it, but when they get to your website, it isn't what they were looking for, then we've kind of failed in that regard as well. So I've had this shifting focus from search engine to user, and then broadening my sort of way of looking at things, so that I've kind of come up with this idea of a triad, where it's just these three entities, if you will, that are all very much equal parts. I put the user at the top of the pyramid because that's actually the one we want to really think about the most. There was a time when I was working in this industry that you could game search engines. So I remember in 2001, if you were to put a keyword onto a page, and this is an example that just sticks in my mind, it was the use of the keyword Britney Spears. If you used Britney Spears in your title tag and in other SEO elements, and then you did a little trick that was done back in the early days where you would put a bunch of content on your page, but you would give it the font the same color as the background, so somebody wouldn't actually be able to read it, but it was still there for search engines to read, your page could very easily rise up to the top for that keyword. And so there are these things that we would have done back in the day that helped your site rise to the top, but we weren't really thinking about users. We were just thinking about the search engine. So really it's about these three elements, these three entities working very closely together. And a lot of that responsibility, or a lot of the control, comes back into that corner of your site. That's the things that you can be doing. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, the things that you can be doing to help impact your organic search and your SEO. Organic traffic or organic search plays a key role in just about every website across every vertical of industry or business, B2C, B2B, tech, nonprofit, for-profit, government even, religious, education. Just I've worked with hundreds of websites over the last couple of decades. Organic search is just about always one of the top driving channels of traffic for just about every single website. What you're seeing here is a pie chart that shows you sort of the top channels. So organic search, direct, referral, paid, and social. There are, of course, others, but these are sort of the top that are pretty common across every site I look at. This pie chart is actually put together from, I took a few minutes a couple nights ago, and I just went into my Google Analytics account. I have access to dozens and dozens of companies' analytics, and I looked at just the nonprofits that I have access to, and I just did a quick tally and did a little sheet and came up with an average. And across the nonprofits, ranging in nonprofits that are on the East Coast, all the way to nonprofits that are on the West Coast, North and South, probably close to about a dozen, maybe a little bit more. And I just did an average, and it came out. This is giving you a good idea. And if you were to look at your Google Analytics accounts, I think you'd see something that was very similar to this. Maybe on the high end, it could be up around 65 or 70%, and on the lower, it might be at 30 or 35%. The point I'm trying to make here is that organic search is usually a very important driver of traffic to your website, and it's one that, in my experience, organizations, companies have not given lots of thought to. They're usually focused very much on things like the paid channels. And that's understandable because that's where they're actually taking dollars, lots of dollars out of their pockets, and they're putting it into, paying for that traffic. So it's something that gets a lot of focus and a lot of attention. But across the board, every study that I've ever come across, and when I look at Google Analytics and I see how those users are engaging with the website, be that measured by time on the site or it's by taking an action, organic users are usually the most engaged. They stay on the site longer, they will consume more of the content, visit more pages, and then they'll take more actions. And those might be actions that are something as simple as signing up for a newsletter. It could be something like a transaction, an e-commerce transaction. But here's a channel of traffic. So it represents a user that's usually much more engaged than the other types of users that are coming at your website and visiting your digital experience. And also when you go in and you look at Google Analytics, there's a report that shows you the multi-channel, so the relationship, users having first touched your website through the channel of organic search, and then they come back through directly browsing to your website, or maybe they first engaged with your website through a paid ad or email, and then they're coming back. Organic is always playing a key role in the analytics accounts I have access to, in that sort of touch points and those engagement points with users. So it's an important traffic for us to consider, and that's one of the objectives I had in this presentation, was to help bring it to the front of your mind just how important this channel of traffic is to receive, a little bit of your attention for sure. There's certainly, as it being a more engaged source of traffic, it's also one that has better return on investment over time. It's a huge cost savings when it comes down to paid ads. You pay, and you pay by click, or you pay by the thousands of impressions, but there's money coming out of your pocket for that. It isn't like there isn't going to be money coming out of your pocket to engage in SEO or to have some SEO work done, or even to employ somebody in your company to take some of their time to work on SEO. But the difference between the cost of doing organic and then how that pays off over time is significantly better than many of the other channels. There's credibility is one thing for sure, because studies have been done by groups like Nielsen Norman that look at users and do user research. Users seem to, they understand that an ad at the top or an ad on the side or a banner is something that a company's paid for. And they seem to understand that the stuff that shows up, those 10 spots in that sort of classic Google search results page, is not paid for. It's something that's maybe earned because the company has some authority. The targeted traffic, as an audience coming through, they're actually what we would call in marketing terms are inbound. So they're actually actively looking for you, looking for your services. So it's not like outbound, where you're going out there and trying to get eyes and get in front of people who are not necessarily thinking of you. And then in terms of conversion, definitely this is a traffic source that stays engaged with your digital experience and takes the actions that you want them to take. This is a screenshot, just before I move on to the next slide, of a YMCA on the West Coast. And it really just shows you, here's the blue line, which represents all users, so from all channels. And then we've just separated out the organic traffic, or the organic search users. And you can see that they represent a big chunk of the overall users, and then their average time on the site. So that's a measure of an engagement, and how they're interacting with your digital experience is quite high, and even higher than the overall average. Certainly organic search and then the users that it brings are very valuable users to have coming to your website. Usually when I do these kinds of presentations, I might have an audience in front of me, or I might have a little bit of a different setup than the classic webinar. But at this point, I would ask, are there any questions at this stage, or is there anything that's come to mind and you'd kind of just burning to get it out there? Fire it in. Allison's already said that she would happily interrupt me in a very cheerful way and share. So we'll just keep rolling if there isn't anything at this point.
So Richard, there isn't any that have popped in from the group, but I'm just going to ask you to repeat something, because I think it's just helpful in the terminology that you're using. One more time, if you would please just kind of define that organic search, what that represents.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to back up a slide. And I'll look at this. This pie chart is representing in Google Analytics, it's called the acquisition channel. Think of it this way: it's really how people found your website. So organic search are people that went to google.com or another search engine. I will just always be talking about google.com because it represents something like 96% of all the searches that people do. But there are other search engines. But they go to a search engine like google.com and they type in a term, something like youth volleyball camp, or something like local food program, or something like that. They've got this intention and they use a search term to initiate that search. That's called organic search, and that returns results that they would then begin exploring. So organic search represents users that have used google.com or another search engine, typing in a keyword and then finding your website in the search results. Does that answer the question clearly?
That does. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Just wanted to make sure that it was understood. Cool.
And no, I appreciate that, because one of the things that I am prone to is sometimes using acronyms or saying terms that have become so a part of my psyche and part of my being. I just assume that everyone else would know. And quite often, something like SEO, for example, I've had clients actually, I initiate digital marketing consultation with them, and then they ask, what is SEO? And I've had people even say to me, SEO, because they've heard it, but they've never seen it. And I just assume that SEO, everybody knows that means search engine optimization, and everybody knows that means google.com. So I do appreciate them sort of bringing me back to that point.
No problem.
And on that note, SEO certainly isn't dead. There, you will see blog posts and maybe a headline that'll say something to that effect, but the hard data of it is that Google is processing a lot of searches every single day. And in this regard, I just wanted to break it down for you what this looks like: 63,000 or more searches per second per day. And so people are using Google, and you yourself know that you use Google. You might be looking for something. You might be trying to figure out what's the best lawnmower to buy because your lawnmower just crapped out. And so you might start that search actually on google.com. Now, Google uses over 200 different ranking signals, and that's how they've built up their algorithm. Of course, that is something that is very private, and they share nothing of it. Through channels, through communication platforms, through blogs and Twitter and stuff like that they have on their website, they talk about what's going on, but they have never really said anywhere, this is what our algorithm is made up of. The closest they've come to is they've said stuff like, we are now including mobile friendliness as a ranking signal, but that really doesn't tell us too much. So to break SEO down and start to look at search engine optimization as strategy and as tactics a little bit closer, we kind of break search engine optimization or SEO into two columns or two camps. One is technical stuff, and that would be stuff that maybe gets done with the development of your website or the content management system. And then there's the on-page stuff, and that's the stuff that as site owners and as site administrators, you would be taking care of on a day-to-day basis or a week-to-week basis, the things that you can take care of. When it comes to search engine optimization, when it comes to doing the tactics and having a bit of a strategy, I love this. I can't remember where I heard it first. It was just recently, but control the controllables. So there are things that you will have control over. Make sure you control those things. Take care of them and do them. That's going to be one of the most beneficial things when it comes to implementing any kind of an SEO strategy. There are things you won't have control over. Leave those, move on to the things you have control over. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about a little bit next. So taking a look at the technical SEO side of things, it was late last year, about the last quarter of 2018, that I started working with One Each. And I started looking at their site, and I started working with some of their clients. One of the things that I did and I looked at closely was some of the aspects of the technical SEO, and it was I was very happy to see that a lot of the websites I was looking at were checking off in the boxes for the technical side, which is something I would expect when a developer is creating a website or migrating to a new CMS. They're going to make sure that you have some of the important things taken care of. And SSL, I haven't looked at every single client that one each has. I'll put that as a caveat, but the ones I have all have HTTPS. And that is one of the things that is very important. So if you're operating with a site, and there could be various reasons why you haven't yet moved to SSL or to HTTPS, but you really should. It became a ranking signal a few years ago, and Chrome, a very, very popular browser, is now starting to flag and indicate so that users of the browser will know that the site they're about to visit or the site that they are visiting isn't secure. And this is something that will just continue to get refined as we go forward. Mobile. This is another one that is very, very important. And I've been in this industry long enough to remember back in the day when we would create websites and the domain would be something like m.oneeach.com, because we were going to be creating a completely separate subdomain mobile version of the website. Now we have responsive design. Just about, well, all of the sites that I've looked at that OneEach has been implementing or been involved in supporting have some aspect of responsive or mobile friendliness included into the site. And that's very, very critical, because like I was talking about the analytics, when I'm looking at sources of traffic, and I'm seeing a lot of traffic that comes from organic and that's sort of shared across all these analytics accounts. The other thing that I'm seeing that is pretty much shared across all of the analytics account is that mobile is taking on more and more of the share in terms of the device that users use to engage with your site. So having a mobile site is very important, and it's also something that just in the last few months, Google has started rolling out these messages through the Google Search Console, and they've been talking about it on their blog. Mobile first is now going to be the default index. Why this matters is because you can have a really good ranking for your website on desktop, but if a user tries the exact same keyword search and your website isn't mobile friendly, it will not show up anywhere on that mobile device. So it's really important that you make sure that that website is just something that users can interact with and engage with no matter what device they're on. Of course, speed is the other one, and some of the speed analysis I've done on sites, there's some opportunities to maybe clean things up in terms of the sizes of images that are being published, and that might fall more on sort of that content side of things. But having a site that is as quick as possible and loads as fast as possible is not only important to the search engine, but it's also important to your users, because lots of studies show that users will just they will just leave a site if it doesn't load within a reasonable amount of time. So that covers some of the important technical aspects of SEO. The other side, and this is where it falls even more into your control, are on some of the on-page elements. And these are the on-page elements that are sort of that fundamental and most important low-hanging fruit. These are the things that are going to have some impact on your website's ranking and how Google will view your website when it crawls it. First of all is the title. The title is that part that's up in the first image where it says in blue, United Way of West Florida. That's your title tag, and that's a snippet from a search results page in Google. I just did a little search on the United Way of West Florida. That was their result that showed up at the top. This is an important aspect. Google still uses the title to decide how to rank your site, to determine and figure out what is your website about. So it's still an important SEO element for sure, something that you want to take control of and be writing effectively. Descriptions. Descriptions are this gray, the two sentences in gray font that are sort of below the URL and below the title. That description used to be part of SEO. It used to be something that was considered as a ranking signal or a way that Google would rank your site. It isn't anymore. And one of the reasons is because they determined many years ago, it's probably 6 or even 8 years ago, they determined that it was too easy for webmasters and SEOs to game the situation by stuffing a bunch of keywords in here and writing something that really wasn't all that effective or representational of what the website was about. However, writing an effective description has a real impact on your user's experience and enticing and encouraging them to come through to your website. So it's still part of the SEO package for sure. H1s, I took another screenshot of the United Way of West Florida website, and that About Us piece of content that you can see down there, that represents the H1 tag. H1 tags are another element that Google will use to rank your site. So really important to try and use keywords in your H1. It might be something where in this case you could say about the United Way of West Florida or something else. If you have location pages, you could say about such and such a location. And of course, then content and the keywords that you use in those content are all the things that you have control over. And when you're writing content, you want to make sure that you're using your primary keywords and any kind of supporting keywords in that content as well, because search engines will crawl that and they will scan a portion, if not all, of your content to try and determine what that page is about. Some of the SEO fundamentals are things that you should be looking at, that are things that you can probably have an easy control over right now if it's not already done. On the technical side, something that would be sort of a site owner's responsibility or a site administrator's sort of realm is make sure you submit a sitemap to Google Search Console. That's really important. It helps the search engine to sort of map out your site and learn what content is on there. And it's really a straightforward thing. Something that I help clients with on a regular basis is even just the setup and authorization of the Google Search Console and then submitting that sitemap. Typically with Drupal, you generate sitemaps with the XML format. That's something that gets done by the CMS. So it's a pretty straightforward thing to do. Also, when you're in Google Search Console, you want to make sure you tell Google what is your preferred domain. Some want to have www.uwwf.org. Others want to have just ymcaeastbay.org. They don't want to have the www. But in Google Search Console, you can set that up as a configuration to say to the search engine, we want the non-www to be the site that is indexed, in the indexed, and is returned to searchers. On the on-page side of things, as I just talked about, titles, meta descriptions, H1, and content. These are all things that you have control over as site owners and site administrators. So you want to make sure that you have a title that is going to be using the keyword and that has been, effectively written to try and entice a user to engage with your content, and also provides information to tell the search engine what that page is about. Again, same thing with the meta description. And you have some character limitations, but with your titles, if you write 50 to 60 characters and you write your description at about 150 characters, you can craft a compelling or a useful type of description or title tag that will help benefit SEO. And then, of course, in your content, the H1 tag is part of your content. So the H1 tag is something that you want to try and use keywords in, and then continue to support the rest of that content to include keywords. Internal linking is another very useful SEO tactic, and that basically is when you have a link within the text on one page that links to another page. And you're usually linking to a page that is related to, or you're sending them over to some information that might be helpful to them. And that's a great thing to do for users. It's also a great thing to do for search engines. And the tactic there, the trick there would be to try and use a keyword in there. So if you had a page that talked about a variety of the services that you offer within a community, and one of the things is that you have a food bank and that you're looking for donors, and then you're sending them over to a donation page where people can learn more about how to participate in donation, you want to make sure that that link that you have in the text uses some kind of a keyword that's relevant. That will definitely help your SEO. And then, of course, the sites that I've been looking at, in One Each's portfolio, there's quite a use of images, like lots of photography about events, lots of photography around things that are happening in the community. And when you're adding that content to your site, it's a very straightforward little tactic to add an alt tag and help to optimize those images. They'll show up in search. Google has also an images index, and it also pulls relevant images right into the main search results page. So it's just another tactic that's fairly easy to implement and to do on a regular basis as you're maintaining your site. And it can help to just increase your overall search visibility in Google.
Hey, Richard.
Yeah.
So we have a question, and you might actually be getting to this. So Ariana, we haven't actually talked about this piece yet. The question is, what about accelerated mobile pages? Is that another thing that can be done to increase speed or key entry point pages?
Yeah, and there are a couple of different, that's a very good question in terms of some of the different technologies that get promoted to help create a more effective mobile page or to speed the load times up. You may have heard of another one called AMP. What I would be looking at would be important pages that you want to be showing up in search. And then are those pages going to really be enhanced or benefit? Sometimes the cost to benefit ratio doesn't add up. But that's something where you'd be talking to your technical team and finding out if we moved to this AMP or accelerated mobile page, or we did something like that, what's going to be the increase? Will it make the page 3 times faster? Would you want to apply that to every single page on your website? Probably not, but there might be things that you could do to help speed up important pages, the home page obviously being one that you'd start with. But that's certainly something to look at. I would start, though, with just looking at the overall page speed, and is there an opportunity to maybe start compressing images, minifying scripts, and some other technical things. And Allison, I think that's where the dev support on one each side could probably generate that sort of detailed inventory of areas where things could be optimized. A lot of times it starts right with the content that's being published on the site. So when the site owners are updating content, they might consider uploading images that aren't as large, or looking at ways that they can kind of streamline some of that.
Right. So just keep in mind, guys, and we talk about this all the time when we meet with you, the speed of your site, there's a lot of factors, but one of the factors that you have control over is the size of the images you're putting on your page. If you're uploading really large image files or large links and documents, it will slow your site down. That's also why you can't put a video on your site. It has to be embedded somewhere else like YouTube and that kind of stuff. That's to keep your site speed going well.
Yeah, and the little tricks that you can do with images is that you might consider if there was an image that was really important, one that you wanted to be at very high resolution or a very large file format or file size, you could upload a thumbnail or a very compressed version of that, and then include some indication or text or a link that would open it up in another browser tab, or open it up in another page for people to take a better look at. And that way you're not impacting that most important page that the image is on. You're just sort of opening that image up in another browser tab. I've seen that be used quite effectively where it was important. The site owners wanted people, and the users wanted to be able to look at higher quality images. And very good point, Allison, on the video. So much has changed and so much has evolved in terms of video service and YouTube. YouTube is also part of the Google world, or the Google universe. YouTube is, the last time I looked at this was about 9 months ago, but YouTube, I believe, is the second largest search engine in the world. So after google.com, you have YouTube. So having YouTube is also very beneficial and can help increase your overall search visibility when people start to look for your services or for your products or programs, courses, or whatever it might be in that regard. Getting to the last slide really is just sort of to take a look at what would be the next steps. And one of the next steps is to actually do a little bit more of a detailed analysis and recommendations on what can be done with your digital experience to help improve the SEO, to help improve the organic search. This is going to start or be a foundation for a strategy that you might use for your SEO on an ongoing basis. Because strategy for SEO doesn't have to be something that's extremely intensive or is going to take up a resource at your office or burden somebody with additional things to do. I know how it is. Everybody has 1 or 2 hats or 3 hats or 4 hats, and they're doing quite a few different things. And a person might be given charge of the website, and that means they're taking care of technical, they're taking care of content, they're taking care of everything. And so adding something else can be a little bit daunting, but an analysis and a recommendation is a good place to start, because it can identify and then prioritize all of the things that you should be doing or that need to be done, and then identifying some of the things that you can be doing on an ongoing basis. The idea is that you increase your search visibility and that you get more of the organic search traffic to your digital experience. It's a valuable channel of traffic. It's a valuable type of user to have coming to your website. And if you can get more of them, that's better. They're going to be people that would potentially be donors or volunteers, or they would be the kind of people that maybe need your services and your programs, and expanding your reach within the community. And it's certainly something that, you know, provides us with a deep look into the fundamental aspects of SEO, identifies the low-hanging fruit, and identifies the things that we could maybe add to an ongoing plan. Something that can be measured, because we can measure organic search as a traffic source to your website. We can also measure how sort of the initial implementation of a strategy might have impacted your overall site's performance. This is from a YMCA on the West Coast, and right up where I put the little note saying implement a tactical on-page SEO strategy, we were launching, I believe we were launching or just migrating to a new version of the CMS. At the same time, we applied all of the fundamental best practices for technical and on-page SEO. Previously, they didn't have things. They didn't have things that would help Google understand about their multiple locations. They didn't have effectively written titles. Many of their pages were missing descriptions. Some of the content needed to be tweaked and optimized. But what it did is it really lifted the overall users that were coming to the site. And that's sort of what we can see here, is that last year about this time, we started to see a lift in the overall number of people that were visiting the website. And when we dig into it a little bit deeper, we can see that the main lift of that was coming through the organic search. There was a little bit in the beginning that was related to other marketing campaigns they were doing with email and some paid advertising. But even after those were done, the organic search was staying up higher. It had sort of lifted up. And that's the overall goal. That's what we're trying to do when we do SEO, is to get more of those types of users to the site, to increase the visibility. And we can go quite deep with it. You know, in a short presentation, I'm coming very close to the end of it now. I know I'm at probably close to 40 minutes already, so I won't drone on for too much longer, but it's an important channel of traffic, and it's one that you put a little bit of investment in, and then that will stay with you. Where some other channels where you might pay for some digital advertising, or you might pay to do some email marketing, that has a sort of a fixed time frame. It starts and stops in sort of a window of time, whereas organic search really just, it grows and grows and stays. And as long as you keep working on your website, providing useful content, implementing the best practices as you go forward, and maintaining your website, you can just grow and establish that organic search traffic. And it's something that I think, you know, I'll turn this over to you now, Allison, but really you should be going to your account managers and your account directors and talking to them about what you could be doing as your next steps, and if there is an opportunity to maybe explore how you could benefit from organic search and SEO analysis and recommendations, or what you could be doing to help grow that channel of traffic. So I'm going to conclude there, and I just want to say thank you very much. I've taken up almost 40 minutes of your time. You've listened to me and my voice from the west coast of Canada, and I really would just like to say thank you. And then, of course, we can open it up for any questions and answers, should there be any. So you can direct anything that you might think of later through your account manager. Over to you.
Thank you. We'll just keep that screen up, though. So this is a great opportunity to ask questions. Go ahead and type that into the question box, and here we go. So, okay, so a question that came in from Evan is, for smaller organizations, And yes, they wear many hats, like you mentioned. What recommendations do you have for prioritizing time with the SEO? What's like the top go-to thing that would be worth people's time if they got to pick one thing?
Excellent. Good question, Evan. I would go back to that slide where I had the green font that said control the controllables, and I would be looking at optimizing your on-page SEO elements. And within that, I'll break it down even further to get even more granular. Because you have control over this, you can go into your CMS or your site administrator, and maybe that's even you, Evan, but somebody can log into the back end of Drupal, they can go to a page and they can make edits to content and stuff. And while they're in there, they can then rewrite or craft a more SEO friendly title tag. So a title tag that is got a keyword in it, a title tag that might entice or inform the users. And that would be the first thing you could do. I would start there. I see quite often sites get created and there's this copy and paste kind of process going on when they're creating content pages, and then in the development stage, in the pre-launch kind of stage, when everybody's pushing hard to get all the content in place before everything is set sail, and titles will quite often just get copied. They're the same title on every single page because someone just didn't think about it, just didn't realize, oh, I should be creating a unique title tag for every page, and that title tag should be specific to that page. It should be, using a keyword. So I would be taking a look at your titles and then also the content. One of the things that is a result or is an output of the SEO analysis and recommendation is a page inventory. And it's a spreadsheet that will come out with all of the URLs, and then it shows you what their titles are, shows you what their descriptions are, shows you what their H1s are. And in those sheets, you can then sort and quite easily identify that there are these pages that have the same or very, very similar title tags. So a title tag, because it has impact on your SEO ranking and can be very beneficial for user click-through rates, that would be the place to start. But with your on-page optimization would be something you'd want to take a look at.
So I'm just going to offer a follow-up for Richard, just for those of you who might be like, what's a title tag? And some of the terminology. The title tag part that you guys might not realize with the website, because Ariana's like, can we control our title tags? I'm not sure. So when you're creating a page, and this would be something where do a follow-up with myself or with Emily, and then ultimately if you're really wanting to get into this and get that listing and understand where your greatest needs are, then we do offer a plan that we can do a whole SEO evaluation, and we can talk to you about the cost on something like that. But on the basic level for the title tags that Richard's referring to, when you're on your page and you create a page and you go to the very bottom and there's the option like to check the box and put it on the menu. There's options in there to type in some words like the descriptor of the page and a title for the page and those things that pull into the page itself. That's what he's actually referring to is some of the stuff you do when you check the box and add it to the menu, and there's the title things down at the bottom of the page. So take a little look at that if you haven't before, if you want to talk to Emily or myself. Hopefully everyone on this call knows who their account manager is. It's either me or it's Emily. So I'm Allison. Emily's also out there. She's muted right now, but I know she's there. She unmuted. So either of us are available to meet with you and guide you. But if you're really wanting to dig into this deep, you want to get an analysis done by Richard so we can really help you pinpoint the best things that are going to help you guys improve your site. Go ahead, Emily. You want to jump in? No?
No, I don't need to add anything. I just want to say hi, everyone.
So anyway, that was a great question. And yes, there are things that you guys can be actively doing on your site now that you may or may not be aware of. There's a lot of little places where you can add in extra words. Ultimately, though, the content on your page is super important. And I heard Richard say that loud and clear. Be careful about the copying and pasting, which we've always talked about, because you can bring in some bad codes in it that will affect some of your searching. So I thank you, Richard. I think this was very informative. Definitely gives everyone something to think about. And for all of you on the call, please, you have questions or you want some follow-up on this, set up time with either myself or Emily, and we're happy to help out. But I think we're good. I don't see any other questions coming in either. Anybody else? Last chance on questions if you have anything. Did you have any questions, Miss Emily? No?
No, it was a great webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. And thank you everyone again for your time and attention.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. We'll go ahead and close this out and send out that recording. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Richard.
Great. You're welcome. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too.